بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. نبدأ بمشيئة الله المحاضرة الثامنة في مادة مخاطر الخزن والمناولة لطلبة الفصل الخامس. في المحاضرة هذه بإذن الله حتكون عبارة عن فيديوهات اللي هي توضح أكثر المواضيع اللي درسناها في المحاضرات السابقة. بمعنى تكلمنا المحاضرات السابقة على الرافعات الشوكية، وقلنا الحوادث، أنواع الحوادث اللي ممكن تصير نتيجة الرافعات الشوكية، اللي هي المتمثلة في سقوط المركبة على شخص، أو اصطدام الرافعة بشخص ما، أو سقوط الحمولة الرافعة على شخص، أو ممكن إصابة قائد الرافعة تجد اصطدام الرافعة الشوكية. هذه تعتبر طبعا أهم الحوادث اللي ممكن يصير للرافعات الشوكية. أيضا حنشوفوا توا في الفيديو الحوادث هذينا، من ضمنهم أيضا اللي هي إصابة مثلا قائد الرافعة لاصطدامه مثلا بشيء خارج المركبة، أو سقوط راكب الرافعة من فوق شوكتي المركبة، أيضا إصابة قائد الرافعة أثناء الصعود أو النزول للمركبة. أيضا حنعرفوا في الفيديو أن أهم حاجة نركزوا عليها في الرافعات الشوكية اللي هي كنترول. الكنترول وحنفهم وش معنى كلمة كنترول. الكنترول في شنو يعني بمعنى أني أنا نعرف كيف نتحكم في حمولة الرافعة الشوكية هذه. وأيضا حنركزوا حنشوفوا في الفيديو أن اتباع التعليمات يقلل من احتمالية اللي هي أن السائق الرافعة الشوكية يسبب في حادث قاتل أو يصيب عامل أو كذا، حنشوفهم في الفيديو. أيضا حنشوفوا في الفيديو اللي هي عوامل ثبات الرافعة، اللي هي النقطة المهمة جدا، اللي هي مركز الثقل متاع الرافعة الشوكية. حنشوفوا أن العوامل اللي تأثر على مركز الثقل الرافعة الشوكية متمثلة في 3 حاجات وضحت في الفيديو اللي توا، لأن وزن الحمولة. فمثلا يعني كلما زادت الحمولة، وزن الحمولة اللي شايلها الفورك ليفت، كلما اتجه مركز الجاذبية اتجاه الحمولة هذه، اتجاه الثقل هذا. أيضا النقطة الثانية اللي هي من العوامل اللي تأثر على مركز ثقل الرافعة الشوكية، اللي هي اتزان الحمولة اللي يأثر على الجانب اللي يتجه له مركز الجاذبية. لو أن الحمولة ما كانتش في المنتصف سوف يتحرك مركز الجاذبية إلى الجانب اللي فيه الحمل الأثقل، حنشوفوها توا في الفيديو. أيضا اللي قلنا من العوامل اللي تأثر على مركز الثقل الرافعة اللي هو ارتفاع الحمولة نفسها، يعتبر مؤثر رئيسي في ثبات الرافعة الشوكية. فكلما ارتفعت الحمولة لأعلى كلما زاد عدم اتزان الرافعة، لأن ارتفاع الحمولة لأعلى يجعل مركز الجاذبية ينحرف بعيد عن مثلث الثبات. وحنعرفوا توا في الفيديو شو معنى كلمة مثلث ثبات. أيضا ارتفاع الحمولة كلما كان عالي يجعل جزء صغير منها بارز من الأرض، أو يعني يسبب انحراف بسيط أو توقف مفاجئ كفيل أنه هو بإيش يسبب في انقلاب الرافعة الشوكية. فطبعا أي منطقة مائلة أو أي منطقة غير مستوية تحرك مركز الجاذبية باتجاه الجزء المنخفض. وأيضا قوة الدفع لها تأثير كبير على الرافعات الشوكية، فزيادة السرعة سوف تحرك مركز الجاذبية باتجاه الجزء الخلفي من الرافعة. وأيضا خفض السرعة كما هو الحال مثلا لما يضغط السائق على الفرامل، الشيء هذا يحرك مركز الجاذبية باتجاه الحمولة. أيضا الانحراف والدوران يجعل مركز الجاذبية يتجه بعيدا عن اتجاه الدوران. طبعا كلما كان اتجاه الدوران سريع كلما ازداد عدم اتزان الرافعة الشوكية، وبالتالي يسبب في انقلاب الرافعة الشوكية.
Practically all forklift accidents happen in one of the following ways: a forklift tipping over on someone, a forklift striking someone, a load or stack falling on someone, an operator injury from the collision of the forklift, an operator injury from the collision of a body part outside of the forklift, a passenger falling from the lift platform or forks, an operator injury from getting into or out of the vehicle, or a body part caught in the vehicle mechanisms. The most important word to remember when operating a forklift is control. All of the safety instructions in this module are about remaining in control of the load and the vehicle. Following these instructions will reduce the likelihood that you, the forklift operator, will be responsible for a potentially fatal accident. In summary, a stable forklift and load has a center of gravity which is low and well within the stability triangle. Here are the factors that affect the center of gravity. Load weight is a major factor. As load weight increases, the center of gravity moves toward the load. Load balance affects the side-to-side location of the center of gravity. A load that is not centered will move the center of gravity to the side where the load is heavier. Load height is also a big influence on stability. The higher a load is raised, the more unstable the truck becomes. The higher a load, the less movement it will take to move the center of gravity out of the stability triangle. With a load raised high, it may only take a small bump, a slight turn, or a quick stop to tip over the forklift. Inclined or uneven surfaces move the center of gravity in the direction of the downward slope. Momentum has a great influence on the truck when it is in motion. Acceleration will move the center of gravity toward the rear of the truck, and deceleration, such as when braking, will move the center of gravity toward the load. Turning will move the center of gravity toward the outside of the turn. The faster a turn is taken, the more the center of gravity will move outward.
الرافعات الشوكية أحيانا يقال لها شاحنات الرفع. هي شائعة في كثير من أماكن العمل، وغالبا ما تجعل من رفع ونقل السلع والمواد أسهل بكثير وأكثر أمنا. ولكن من دون ممارسة السلامة الجيدة والإجراءات المعمولة بها يمكن أن تكون خطرة جدا. في الواقع الرافعات الشوكية من الأسباب الرئيسية للوفيات والإصابات في العمل. الرافعات المحملة قد تزن العديد من الأطنان وتؤدي إلى الكثير من الضرر في حال وقوع حادث، بالإضافة فإنها كثيرا ما تكون أقل استقرارا من غيرها من المركبات. الحوادث الدارجة للرافعات الشوكية تتضمن التزحلق، التعثر والسقوط، آلام في الظهر أو العنق خلال السياقة، الاصطدام بالمارة من خلال حركة الرافعات وحملها الزائد، والانقلابات. الانقلابات عندما الرافعات الشوكية تقع إلى الأمام أو على جوانب الطرق من أكثر المخاطر على عاملي الرافعات، مع احتمال التعرض إلى إصابات خطيرة أو حتى الموت. العوامل التي يمكن أن تسبب انقلابات الرافعات: السياقة محملة أو غير محملة مع رفع العشواك، الالتفات بشكل حاد أو الدوس على المكابح بشكل قوي، حمل أكثر من طاقتنا، حمل حمولة على المنحدرات، والإصابة في بعض الهياكل. لذلك فمن المهم أن كل ما يرتبط باستخدام الرافعات الشوكية محددة، ووضع المراقبين المناسبين في المكان لتجنب أي مخاطر كانت والتقليل منها على مختلف المستويات. سلامة الرافعات الشوكية تندرج تحت 3 تصنيفات. أولا التفتيش اليومي، ثانيا تشغيل الرافعات، وإدارة الحركة. في كل مرة تستعمل الرافعات يجب أن تفتش قبل الاستعمال، وهناك نوعان من التفتيش: فحصها قبل التشغيل، فحصها أثناء التشغيل. قبل التشغيل تتم من خلال فحص الإطارات والعجلات للتأكد من عدم تلفها، والتأكد من أن العجلات لها نفس الضغط، وأيضا فحص فحص السوائل والزيت والماء والسائل الهيدروليكي. سبيل للصحة والسلامة، تعمل من أجل سلامتكم.
Sequent Consumer Products is probably a brand name that a lot of people don't know. You probably know us better by our brand names that we sell to retail. Reese Hitches, Reese Towing Products, Highland Cargo Management and Tie-Down Products. That's who we sell.
Sequent recently worked with Associated, a provider of integrated supply chain solutions, to analyze their distribution operations. Their goal was to uncover opportunities to optimize their warehouse in South Bend, Indiana. As a result of their engineering and design study, Associated provided Sequent with alternatives that would result in improved efficiencies and reduced operating costs. Based on these recommendations, Sequent opted to reconfigure their storage layout, adjust their fleet mix, and reduce process bottlenecks through the use of automation to optimize their fulfillment operation.
We had a feeling that the fleet makeup would change, but when we sat down with the engineering team and laid out for them where our primary pick faces were, we changed the composition primarily away from order pickers to single walkie drivers. We had noticed that we were spending too much time in the air picking, so we moved everything to the floor for pick face. Obviously, a single walkie is a less expensive piece of equipment to acquire than a man-up order picker is. It also tends to be faster, and there's less safety concerns operating with that piece of equipment. So there were some big changes there. But we also have a lot of double deep high storage in this building, and the Raymond Double Deep Reach just is a really superior product for us, especially with the cameras and especially with the laser beam sight indicators for the operators. We ended up with a fleet of 29 lifts, and it was a mixture of different products: single walkies, double walkies, order pickers, double deep reach trucks, three-wheel forklifts, and an internal combustion truck.
In addition to the process enhancement solutions, Associated recommended fleet management to further improve their truck and operator performance. The fleet is now equipped with the industry's most advanced fleet optimization tool, Raymond's iWarehouse. This system allows Sequent to operate with greater effectiveness and cost efficiency by providing them with real-time visibility to numerous data points. They can now evaluate and immediately act upon information that directly results in operational and bottom-line improvements. Given Sequent's focus on sustainability, they also chose to employ opportunity charging for lift truck batteries, replacing a former battery charging system.
Certainly in any warehouse operation, battery charging and changing is a big concern. You have the safety concern of maintaining a battery room, of potential spills, of potential dropping a battery, of damaging a battery coming in or out of a piece of equipment, and just the floor space that a battery room ties up, plus the cost of the batteries. So with using the opportunity charging, every truck has one battery in it. We charge at lunch times and we charge between shifts, but we've not had to change a battery here since early 2010.
Another major solution provided by Associated is an extendable conveying system that allows Sequent to save additional labor costs by improving the efficiency in the unloading of import containers in receiving.
We spend a lot of time with labor inside of those containers. At certain times of the year, that's not so horrible, but when it's extremely hot out or extremely cold out, it really becomes a quality of life issue for our people. Plus, we need to turn those containers relatively quickly. So the Associated Engineering team put together a powered receiving conveyor solution for us that we installed this year, and we've noticed about a 30% decrease in unloading time, both in labor and in time in the door for a hand unloaded container.
The results of the integrated solutions Associated provided have helped Sequent to optimize their storage and order fulfillment operations.
Our first year payback was in the tens of thousands of dollars, and that's a composition of between lease, ongoing maintenance for the equipment, and charging for the equipment. So we've experienced a very nice savings. The folks from Associated have been a really good team to work with. They really listen a lot to us. They bring in innovative solutions. They take us out on field trips. They really just spend time working with us to make sure that we're happy and that we're listened to.
And chemical processes form a major part of our lives. From the cars we drive, to the foods we eat, to the ways in which we relax, we depend on a vast array of chemicals to make life easier, safer, and more convenient. Chances are your work brings you in contact with chemicals and chemical processes. Even the simple act of putting gasoline in your vehicle means transferring a highly flammable liquid from one container to another. And while the final product provides enormous benefits, chemicals may be dangerous or even deadly. Corrosives, for example, are often used in the manufacture of life-saving pharmaceuticals. These same chemicals, however, can cause serious skin damage, blindness, and even death. As dangerous as some of these chemicals are, you can handle them safely by knowing what you're working with, how to handle it, and what to do in an emergency. This program shows how to identify certain chemical hazards, handle chemicals safely, and how you should handle emergencies involving these chemicals. You can identify a chemical's potential hazards in several different ways, including the type of hazards it presents, its physical state, and health effects. Chemicals can present four basic types of hazards in the workplace. They can be fire hazards, igniting and burning easily. They can be toxic or poisonous if swallowed, inhaled, or absorbed through the skin. They can burn skin on contact. And they can react dangerously when they come in contact with other materials. Hazardous chemicals can be solids, such as sodium metal, liquids like gasoline, or gases like chlorine. The effect a chemical has on your body can be either acute or chronic, depending on the type, frequency, and length of your exposure. Acute effects usually occur rapidly as the result of short-term exposure and typically do not last a long time. Chronic effects develop over time, sometimes showing up many years after the exposure. They are usually the result of repeated or long-term exposure. Benzene, for example, occurs naturally in crude oil and natural gas. It is commonly used as a solvent or raw material in the manufacture of a number of products. The short-term or acute effects of benzene exposure include severe skin irritation, a painful burning sensation, and a condition known as chemical pneumonia. In this condition, benzene is absorbed rapidly through the skin, causing your lungs to swell. Exposure to low concentrations of benzene over a long period of time can produce chronic effects including blood disease, chromosome damage, and low birth weight in babies. When handling chemicals, knowledge is your most powerful tool. Begin by recognizing the specific hazard or hazards the chemical may present. The Material Safety Data Sheet, or MSDS, is one of your best sources for information on the chemicals you use. It contains a summary of a chemical's hazards, as well as proper handling, use, and storage methods. The MSDS also lists important information for protecting you, such as permissible exposure limits, the right personal protective equipment, firefighting techniques, and emergency procedures. The first step in identifying a chemical is to read the label. Each chemical that arrives in your facility must have accurate labels containing specific information. Read the label to discover a chemical's hazardous ingredients, the principal hazard it poses, and the name and address of the manufacturer, who can provide further information. In addition, the label provides the Chemical Abstract Service, or CAS number.
Use this number when looking up information about the chemical on a computer or when there is a question about the identity of the chemical. It may also be necessary when reordering the chemical. In addition to identifying labels, each chemical container must have a hazard label. There are two major labeling systems in use for identifying a chemical's hazards. One developed by the U.S. Department of Transportation, or DOT, and one by the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA. The DOT system uses diamond-shaped color labels and placards that describe the nature of the chemical hazard. Examples of DOT labels include both flammable and non-flammable gases, flammable liquids and solids, poisons and infectious substances, as well as radioactive materials and miscellaneous hazardous materials. The NFPA label is also diamond-shaped, but is divided into 4 different colored sections. The red section represents the material's level of flammability. The blue section represents the chemical's health hazards. The yellow section represents the chemical's instability. And the white section indicates special hazards that cause the chemical to become dangerous in a fire, such as reactivity with water, or oxidizers that cause fires to burn violently. For each of the primary colors, a number system on a scale of 0 through 4 is used to describe the intensity of the hazard. For example, when you see a 0 in the red flammability section, it means the chemical is non-flammable. However, the number 4 in the same section means the chemical is highly flammable. Chemical manufacturers or suppliers may have their own customized hazard identification, so you need to become familiar with the system in your workplace. Also, keep in mind that while some chemicals present multiple hazards, the label may only indicate the most prevalent hazard, so stay informed and take time to learn all hazards of the chemicals you use. You can reduce the risks of hazardous chemicals by using proper handling and storage techniques. While specific requirements vary from one chemical to another, here are some general guidelines that apply to most hazardous materials. Before you use any chemical, make sure you know what it is. Do not use any chemical from an unidentified container. When transferring chemicals, use the proper container for each material. Remember that the container you are transferring the material to must also be properly labeled. Make sure the container is leak-proof and sturdy. Stack containers carefully so they won't fall. Be sure they're not stacked too high, blocking aisles or obstructing emergency exits. Treat cylinders containing compressed gases as potential explosives. Don't expose cylinders to high temperatures. Excessive temperatures can trigger rupture prevention devices or cause explosions. When a cylinder is empty, promptly remove the regulator and replace it with a protective cap and mark the cylinder as empty. When moving or storing cylinders, secure them with straps or chains, or place them in an appropriate stand to prevent them from falling. Never use a cylinder that cannot be identified. Flammable materials also require special precautions. Here are some rules for handling flammables. Carry glass bottles containing flammable liquids in a rubber cradle to reduce the risk of breakage. Keep ignition sources away from the material. Use static bonding and grounding procedures when transferring flammables. Keep flammables away from hot work or sparks. And observe no smoking regulations in areas where flammables are used or stored. Oxidizers and flammables are a dangerous combination. Store them well away from each other to prevent violent reactions in case of fire. Use NFPA-approved fireproof cabinets to store flammable materials away from the work area. Many accidents occur when chemicals are being moved to and from storage areas, so use common sense and the methods your facility has outlined when moving hazardous chemicals. When working with any hazardous chemical, keep the area well ventilated to prevent harmful vapors or dust from accumulating in the air. Hazardous chemicals have 4 ways of entering your body. They can be absorbed through your skin, inhaled as dust, fumes, or vapors, ingested or swallowed, or introduced on contaminated objects that puncture your skin. To reduce the risk of exposure to hazardous chemicals, you must wear personal protective equipment, or PPE, that is designed and tested for the chemicals you're using. Some rubber gloves, for example, can fall apart when exposed to certain corrosives. Some chemicals require aprons or full body coverings to protect you from splashes or contamination. You may need an air purification device in areas where normal ventilation will not protect you from harmful vapors. These devices can range from simple air filters to respirators, or even a self-contained breathing apparatus. In all cases, protect your eyes with safety glasses, safety goggles, or a face shield. Protect your hands with appropriate gloves. Neoprene gloves can protect you from most corrosives or solvents, but don't guess. Your life and health are at stake. Examine your gloves for signs of wear or failure every time you put them on. Gloves can fail due to permeation or a chemical seeping through glove material, or penetration when a glove is torn or punctured. Look carefully at the tips of the fingers and between fingers for cracks, pinholes, or excessive wear. If there are any signs of damage, replace them. Make sure your gloves fit properly. Gloves that are too small can constrict the movement of your hands, while gloves that are too large can get caught in machinery, causing major injuries. Before removing your gloves, take the time to rinse them with clean water to remove chemical residue. This will prevent your hands from coming in direct contact with chemicals. Your ordinary safety shoes may not protect you against all chemicals. Corrosives, for example. Wear rubber boots, rubber overshoes, or synthetic rubber and acid-resistant work shoes to be safe. Check the MSDS to ensure you are using the correct combination of personal protective equipment for your situation. Your employer will provide the appropriate PPE, but it's up to you to use it properly. No one plans accidents, but you can make plans to handle them. Your facility's emergency action plan contains specific information for handling hazardous material emergencies, including contact information, evacuation and rescue procedures, and reporting guidelines. Learn the plan before you have to use it. Your knowledge could save lives and property if you apply it quickly and properly. In the case of spills or leaks, the HAZWAPER standard, along with Title III of the Superfund Amendment Reauthorization Act, or SARA, may apply. HAZWAPER, or Hazardous Waste Operations and Emergency Response, establishes strict training level guidelines when a dangerous spill or leak threatens your workplace. In addition, SARA Title III states that any hazardous spill that releases more than the threshold limit of a contaminant into the environment must be reported immediately to local authorities or through approved notification methods. HAZWAPER also prohibits workers from participating in hazardous waste operations and emergency response activities unless they have received proper training according to worker protection standards. In other words, if there is an emergency, do what you're trained to do and stay out of everyone else's way. If you don't, you could make things worse and become a casualty yourself. If a fire occurs that is small enough to fight with a portable fire extinguisher, make sure you use the right extinguisher for the type of fire you're fighting, and that you know how to use it properly. Remember the PASS system. Pull the pin, aim the nozzle, squeeze the handle, and sweep from side to side at the base of the flames. If the fire becomes too large, or you start to run out of extinguishing agent, evacuate the area immediately. Finally, when you're working with or near hazardous chemicals, always make sure you know the location of eye wash stations, safety showers, and the number for the poison control center. If your eyes are splashed by chemicals, get to the eye wash fountain immediately. Hold your eyes open in the water and flush them continuously for 15 minutes. For larger splashes, get to the safety shower without delay. Step into the running water and remove contaminated clothing while in the shower. You have the power to make hazardous chemicals useful in many ways. You also have the power to use them safely by following some basic guidelines. Know what you're working with. Read the label and MSDS, and make sure you understand the hazards and the ways to avoid them. Know how to move, transfer, and store the material safely. Use the right PPE and use it the right way. Know your role in case of emergency. Know when and how to fight fires involving hazardous chemicals. Just as important, know when not to fight them and get help instead. Finally, learn the locations of safety equipment such as fire extinguishers, eye wash stations, and safety showers. Knowledge. Your knowledge is the key to keeping hazardous materials under control. You can make the difference and keep your workplace safe for you, your coworkers, and your community.